Well, good morning. I'm George Moore. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Cengage Learning. Just going to spend about 10 minutes talking about data and how we use data in our organization. We've been going through a huge transformation at Cengage, and as we've been emerging as a legacy publishing company into really an ed tech focused organization, leveraging our content, leveraging our systems, but with moving into this new world, we've really focused on, let's not just take an artistic view of how the product should work, let's take a really data-driven view of how the products work. As we build our products, as we make our decisions, data has been the cornerstone of all of those decisions. Understanding what's working, what's not working, what's helping students learn, and what's helping professors be more efficient. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through some charts. We've got 10 minutes here. Please, I'd love some questions as we go through it. And I'm going to show you some of the examples of the data that we're gleaning in this, what's now been about a 2.5-year effort of instrumenting all of our products. So every time anything happens, we're getting feedback from students and professors. So every semester, currently, with our current growth and our current number of students, on just MindTap, one of our 7 platforms, with about 700,000 students, we're tracking 50 million data points every semester. So every time they turn a page, an ebook, every time they answer a question, every time they go through flashcards, every time they decide to do a self-quiz, every one of those events is tracked. All the way to when they're searching for answers in our product or if they've left our product. So what are the points where they've decided, I don't see I can't answer my question here, I can't do homework, I'm going to go to Google and look up the answer. We're tracking what are all those exit points out of our products. And all of that gets rolled back into the decision process. So what does that allow us to do? So this is where, instead of just tracking the data for data's sake and putting up those, we pull that together to really understand how can we correlate that to what our higher level objective is drive better outcomes. So what can we do to drive better outcomes for students? So as we start looking at the grades overall of how students are doing, we're tracking those data points. And we've seen a huge correlation. If students are using the product, are in the product, trying the different functionality, that we will see, and as we see, a huge 40% of the students who spent more than 3 hours a week in the class have exponentially higher scores. Where it gets really interesting is a lot of the students wouldn't use it consistently through the class. They'll do it right before midterm, they'll do it different pieces. So we also can now see that students who regularly go through their product, regularly go through their flashcards every day. I didn't throw this one up, but we've seen that students in more of our sciences class, students who spend at least 15 minutes in flashcards every day have a 75% chance of passing the class. So just going through and understanding the terms in these courses is a huge piece, and the flashcard app is working. It's definitely getting us where we want to go. Piece that most people don't understand, interesting correlation, that if we start correlating students are doing well, and then the professor's engagement in the product. The professor going into the product, setting up new assignments, not all at the beginning of the class, but changing assignments through the semester. Their students have a much, much better chance of succeeding in that class. And so as we're using this to try to help when professors are saying, I don't know how to bring digital into my classroom, I don't know what I should be doing, many of them are setting it up and forgetting it. The ones who actually are going in, tweaking it, making changes as they go, as they're engaged in the product, their students become engaged in the product. And as the students see them making these changes, it pulls them in. So that the corollary is that the more we can get the professors to get into the product and use the product and make changes, it'll get their students into the product. And if the students get into the product, the students have better outcomes. So there's a real cause and effect here. And so as we're building features, we're now working with professors and understanding what are the types of things that would help you get in there? What is keeping you from getting into the product? What are the types of changes you can make? One of the changes that we've started to see that's in the data is professors who put in their own highlights, push it out to those students, and those highlights being not a general highlight for the course going forward, but where they're seeing the questions in their office hours. And these are the types of things students are asking for. Let me go into the book and highlight those things. And the students can, in their study centers, pull those highlights out. So the students now can use that as part of their flashcards and other things. So these are the types of tips we're trying to take the data that we see that is making real impact, and then equipping our sales force to go sit with professors and help them understand how they can use this in the classroom. And then the biggest piece is customization. Our platforms are all focused around, it's not one size fits all, that if you don't teach chapter 1, or if your teaching style says chapter 7 really makes more sense in this course to come after chapter 3, we let you move it all around. You move the content around. If you're not going to teach a chapter, you should delete the chapter, get it out of the system. Professors who take the time to go in and do that, students realize that this is where I need to go get the content. Just getting a PDF off the internet or other ways to get the content. If the professor's taken the time to adapt the content to the class, the students are much more engaged, and we see huge impact, statistically, a huge impact on how that leads to better grades. And a lot of these numbers we're seeing in the same class with the same content. Professor who adjusted the content, a professor who didn't adjust the content, see real positive impacts. I touched on this before. As we're going through, our data goes all the way down to what pieces are they using? What is making that bigger impact? Is spending more time in flashcards in our medical terminology class clearly has a huge impact. It doesn't in some of our humanities classes. So as we're looking at the features, it's not one size fits all. The teams are looking at what are the features that are driving better outcomes, and how do we emphasize those features? How do we bring more features similar to that into the product? So as we're going through, one of the big pieces we look at is just how search comes into the how search comes into it. So what are we, throughout the product, people are searching. As we meet with students and observe them using our product, we find that many times on the other browser they have open is Google. So they're going through, doing their work, searching on Google, going back and forth. We're now capturing a lot of the search. They'll first search in our product, then we see that they leave. And leaving is that there's no activity in our product, so they're somewhere else doing something. And we're starting to see, here's a topic that they searched for inside the system, and they clearly didn't find it because they left for a while. And now we're looking at how can we correlate that back to, let's get that content, let's get those items that they had to go somewhere else and pull that into the experience, pull it into as part of what we're looking at overall. We're also now in our the hard side of the business, looking at how the student goes through the work. Our students start with the homework and then look up the answer in the book. So in our new products coming out this fall, we'll be flipping that around. The product will be designed to search. So instead of the student having to flip through lots of pages looking for the definition of or the answer, how to solve this problem in chemistry or calculus, they're going to do their homework and they're going to be able to search for the results, and that search results will mimic what they're used to, kind of a Google results page that is the content in the book. That they don't want the book. You don't read a book from 1 to 500. They skip around it. So let's build an interface that meets that, and then we'll be tracking that and pulling in other content into the solution. So generally, we go through. This also helps our internal teams as we start to see what courses, what chapters and sections of the book the professor is customizing, what are they changing, what are the students spending a lot of time in, and that's where we're changing the amount of time that we spend building the product. So our product teams look at, if everyone's deleting chapter 1, we should reevaluate, is that a valuable chapter in the book? What is it that's having most of the professors feel that it's not at the right place to start? And then that drives all of our prioritization. So as we start seeing where people are using, what features are working, we now start driving our investments into these different areas. And then kind of last but not least, we do this with the products, but we also do it with all the other data in our organization. So our sales consultants, all of our services organizations through the group every week do reports on who they met with, what issues the customer's having, and we put that into a big search engine. So we now are crawling, instead of just having email, one salesperson said, hey, this customer's having an issue here. Another salesperson said, hey, there's a great new product on the market that they're using in their class. We're now pulling that into our decision-making process. So all of that kind of unstructured data, we're now structuring and giving that back out to the product organization to see, here's some trends we're starting to see. Here's a new little ed tech startup that people are using in one class, and let's go talk to them about creating a mind app so we can take that experience that's working really well, but integrate it into the overall learning experience inside of MindTap. So I'll wrap up there. At the last piece of it, While we do all of this, have the first and foremost thing we think about is student privacy and the student data. So as we're building these cubes of data, it's all de-identified student data. I don't need to know who the student is. I just need to know where they were and the demographic of that student. So we keep our student information in a separate system. All of this is just IDs of students, which are kind of random pointers to those students. If the student wants to do, we can have reports that show them kind of where their content is, but from a company-wide perspective, no one knows which student's failing in the class, which student's passing. They're just seeing that generally here are the trends that are happening in the overall product. And that wraps it up. 10 minutes. I'm never presented in 10 minutes, so it's not easy. So I'll be around. If there's other questions, happy to answer other questions, but thank you very much.